Hi friends, my name is Singh. I'm a cricket coach at Empower Cricket Academy. Now in today's video, in this volume 3, we'll continue our discussion what we were discussing in our last video, the professional development of a cricketer in his journey to pathway to elite cricket. Now I call this professional development as a process. As we know that this process, the professional process, is divided into 4 equal halves: body, skill, plan and practice. We have already talked about the body part. In this video we're going to talk about the skill, plan and practice. Before I start my discussion, I like to share with you that a player is responsible for his own development. Now when we talk about a player being responsible for his own development, then how does he learn? What is the learning cycle of a player? So I'm going to describe the learning cycle of a player now. A player's learning cycle is divided into 5 equal halves. The player plays, reflects. He reflects by watching the videos, going through the wagon field, going through the stats. Then with the help of support staff, coaches, video analysis, the player analyzes what worked, what didn't work, what went well, what didn't go so well. Then after that comes the planning part. So now with the help of the support staff, the player discusses the plan for the next game. They start planning for the next game, that what needs to be done, which area needs to be worked on, which skill needs to be focused on, and then once that is worked out, then they move on to the practice part. So in the practice part, they practice the skill, they plan and they work and prepare for the next game. So this is how the cycle works. Now this cycle is again divided into 2 equal halves. Playing and practicing is the doing part. Reflection, analyzation, planning is the thinking part. So now you can understand that why skill, plan and practice go together. Guys, when we talk of skill, what is skill? We should have a clear concept in our mind that what is skill. A skill is the ability to perform an activity in a competent manner. A skill can also be defined as the ability to do something well, expertise by practicing, by training. So once you have understood what the skill is, then what are the different basic types of skill in cricket? So it's batting, bowling, fielding, wicket keeping. When you talk of batting, defending or hitting the ball with the bat, that's where the skill is involved. When you talk of bowling, you bowl pace, medium pace, finger spinner, wrist spinner, that's where the skill is involved. Then you talk about the fielding side, the fielding skill. So catching the ball, fielding the ball, throwing the ball, that's where the skill is involved. Then comes the fourth, the wicket keeping. So gathering the ball, collecting the ball, that's where the skill is required. So guys, if you go through all this, you will understand that skill, plan and practice go together. And now when we have talked about the skill, so how do you execute a skill? What is the ways and means of executing a skill? You require technique. So guys, when I say technique, what is technique? A particular way or method of doing something. That's how I describe technique. So once you have understood what the technique is, then you go on to the drills. So what is a drill? Drill is the ways and means of training or going through a process, doing an activity and act in repeated manner. So we can talk about batting drills, bowling drills, fielding drills, wicket keeping drills, and that's how the drills can be helpful in mastering the skill. Once you have done this part, then we move on from the skill to the planning part. Now when I talk of planning is the key to success. You plan well, be prepared to succeed. If you don't plan well, be prepared to fail. That's how it works. So good players, smart players, elite players, they always have clear thoughts in their mind. They have clear plans in their mind. They always know what they are working towards, where they are going towards. So when they walk into the park, when they walk into their nets or practice sessions, they go to their academies, they know exactly what they are going to work on, which particular skill they are going to work on. They take the help of the coaches, the support staff, and they try and execute what is there in their mind, and they are very specific when it comes to training. So that's where the planning helps them. Now, since we are talking about planning, planning is just like as if you are preparing for the exams. If you have gone through all your chapters well, if you have prepared well for the exams, and the minute you walk into the examination hall, you are confident. You know exactly what to do because you have prepared well. Similarly, in cricket, if you have worked well on all the various aspects, the technical, tactical, physical, mental, all aspects, then you have done your homework well, you have done your preparation well, when you have cut all the corners, when you have approached yourself towards the game by going through this process properly, you are confident. So the minute you cross the road, you are confident. And that's where planning helps you. So now, once you have done the planning part, then comes the match part. You have gone into the zone, the battle zone. So guys, now this is where planning helps you. Now we're going to talk about the practice part. Before I go ahead with the practice part, I have already mentioned in the planning part that practice can be planned, practice can be organized properly. If you practice well, systematic practice sessions, productive practice sessions, meaningful practice sessions, then they are clubbed together with your planning, and then it works well for you when it comes to playing a game of cricket. Now from there we move on to the performance, because once you have entered the battle zone, once you have reached the battle zone, the performance is talked about. So guys, when it comes to performance, I'm going to share with you a performance formula. When I say a performance formula, it is P is equal to P square minus I. Now the first P, the performance, the most talked about. Everybody looks up to you for the performance, your team, your teammates, your parents, your family members, the people around you. So performance is the most talked about part, that is the P1. Now when we equate this, we come to P square. The first P is the potential of a player, and the second P is your preparation, right? So the quality preparation you have done. What was the quality of the preparation? Then I'll say minus I. I is the interference. So what is coming in the way of your preparation and potential is interference. Now interference can be your personal interference, your lifestyle, not sticking to a diet plan, not taking proper rest, which I've already talked in my volume 1, the video 1. So it can also be skill oriented, that you are making a mistake every match after match. You are making the similar mistakes when it comes to batsmen, not leaving the ball, not judging the ball, playing the ball too early, taking too much of trigger movement. Anything, the technical part can be thought about. Then comes to bowler, the anxiety taking over, doing too many variations in a short spell, losing everything. So there are so many factors I covers. So now when you start thinking of I, the minute you start reducing I, the quality of your potential and the quality of preparation is raised. When your quality of potential and your quality of potential is raised, preparation is raised, your performance is raised. So when we look at performance is directly proportional to your potential and preparation, and performance, the first P, is inversely proportionate to interference, that is I. So the minute you reduce I, the first P goes up. And if you think about this formula, and if you try and work with this formula, I'm sure it's going to help you a lot. Now when we are talking of this, I'd like to also share with you that what are the core principles of a high performance. When you talk of high performance, what are the core principles? Now according to me, the core principles are the attitude. When you talk of attitude, you are the in charge. You control your attitude. So it matters. Your motivation can fluctuate. It can go up, go down. But attitude, you are in charge. So you walk into the stadium, when you walk into your academy, when you go for your practice sessions, when you go to play a match, attitude matters because you control it. Then comes the commitment part. It is that underlying drive towards the goal. So how committed you are? What are your commitment levels? how focused you are towards achieving your targets. So that is the second part. Then comes the third part, the ownership. Your development is your responsibility. Your responsibility. I started this video with that your development is your responsibility. So think about it. So once you have understood the ownership part, and I call this part as the ownership part. So once you have understood the ownership part, then comes the responsibility part, because you have started taking the responsibility. Once you have started taking the responsibility, then comes the accountability part. You are accountable for your acts, your actions. And once you have understood the accountability part, then comes the excellence part. So guys, the excellence part, I'll say, is the best you can perform to your potential, to your ability. And that's how I sum up the excellence part. So these are the factors that will help you. These are the core principles of high performance. So you have to start thinking about it. Before I finish my discussion in this video, I will also like to share with you that there is a theory called marginal gain theory. Now this marginal gain theory is a very interesting theory. Every player should start thinking about it, because it will help you in long run. So are you open to the new ideas? Are you okay with discussing your thoughts with your coaches, support staff? Are you all going in the one direction? Are you making efforts in making your ineffective sessions effective? So how does that work? Now, when I'll give you a small example. Say for example, you walk into bat in the nets for your practice session. A batsman has to do everything. He has to go take his stance, take his grip, hold his grip, and play on the merit of the ball. But what is that marginal gain you can do in this practice session? What is that marginal gain you can add in this practice session? Say for example, when you go to bat, you just focus on that. Today my focus will be a 2% extra on holding my grip. I'll make sure that before I hold my grip, I'll have a good look at it, and then I will take my stance and play the ball. So in the next session, you can work on that. Today, when I'm going to take my stance, I'll make sure that I take my stance properly. I'll make sure that I stand properly. So that is that 2% extra I'll work on. Next time I walk into practice, I'll make sure that I leave the ball. I focus that 2% extra on leaving the ball, in judging the ball. So you can add, a bowler can add similarity to his sessions by that 2% criteria of I'll go to focus on my run-up, going to focus on my follow-through, I'll go to focus on my gathering. You know, that what is that 2%? So by focusing that 2 and doing that 2% extra will not make you score 100 or take a fiver in a match, but yes, these small efforts collectively will make a big difference. So guys, this is the marginal gain theory. Think about it, try and use it. I can assure you it works. Guys, in my next video, the last video of this series, Pathway of Elite Cricket, I'm going to talk about the mental side of cricket, the outcome, I always say, the least talked about in cricket. So I'll see you all soon again. All the best. Good luck.